You're the author of your own story. When you hear no, you can write the next chapter. And I tell my kids that all the time. You are the author of your own story. I think in many ways that's applicable to many things. When you hear teachers say, my classroom's not going the right way, rewrite the story. You can come to work tomorrow and start all over. You can start from the beginning. No one else has that control but you. I often say that to myself a lot. I'm the author of my own story. And what's the story I want to be told when I'm not sitting in this seat?
Welcome back to the Change Starts Here podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Odham, and today's episode is going to challenge, inspire, and expand how we think about leadership, especially when it comes to serving every student in our schools. Our guest today is Kimberly Gardner, a dynamic leader who is breaking new ground in Louisiana as the first ever Assistant Superintendent of Students with Exceptionalities and Federal Programs for state Tammany Parish Public Schools. Kimberly's journey is remarkable. She's been a special education teacher, and we talk about that title, a gifted educator, an elementary school principal, and now she serves at the executive level for the district that serves over 38,000 students, nearly 30% of whom are supported through her department. But what makes Kimberly's leadership truly stand out isn't just her resume, it's her heart. She's passionate about student voice, goal setting, and building school cultures where every learner feels seen, heard, and empowered to lead. If you care about creating systems that include all students, if you're curious about how to build culture from the inside out, or if you just need a shot of hope from someone who's doing the work, we've got you covered. Let's dive in. Kimberly, thank you so much for making time to be here with us today. I know that we had to have some scheduling changes based on my ridiculous travel schedule, so I sincerely apologize, and I thank you so much for making time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so and I know that we're standing in between a cabinet meeting, so we know that we have life to get to, but I want to start off with, you've had a rich and diverse background. You've done gifted education to special education, time we'll talk about that term in a second, to administration, and now you're serving as the first ever, right? I believe I'm correct. First ever assistant soup of students with exceptionalities in St. Tammany. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm curious, what has that journey, you've had just a unique journey from all sorts, what has that journey taught you about the importance of adaptability and growth when it comes to leadership?
I think going through the journey of holding so many positions under the umbrella of students with exceptionalities, we call it students with exceptionalities here in St. Tammany. We don't call it special education. It's taught me to appreciate and value the roles that so many of our educators serve. So I've taught gifted. I've taught what we call a behavior education class. I've also taught mild moderate, where students have mild to moderate disabilities. So I've walked in the shoes of many of the educators that work with me. And I think having an appreciation of what they do on a day-to-day, it contributes to being a great leader because you just have that understanding.
Yeah. So when you hear the word, I started off very specifically, even given our conversation we had before this, citing that you taught special education. I am curious, when you hear that term now, what does it invoke in you, and what would you hope is changed, either about the term or about people's viewpoint when it comes to, quote unquote special education, or in your case, students with exceptionalities?
I think when I hear special education, now that we've used the term students with exceptionalities for so long, when I hear special education, it makes me visualize this antiquated way of educating students with disabilities in isolated classrooms, away from their typical peers, having a curriculum that may look different than what their typical peers are receiving. Whereas to me, students with exceptionalities, it allows you to think everyone's exceptional. Everyone has something about them that's unique, right? It's just like Leader in Me. Everyone has genius. So when you change that term, it changes your mindset just by changing a term. So they're exceptional. They're not unable to do. So we just have to look at that exceptionality for what it is and realize what's exceptional about them, and then navigate their educational journey that way. Where can they fit in with their disabled peers? Where do they need modified or accommodated, modified instruction or accommodations? So I think sometimes words have stigmas, and special education just has that stigma to me.
I don't disagree at all. As we talked about my brother who had exceptionalities of not being able to walk or talk due to his cerebral palsy, and the fight that my stepdad had to go through in the '90s just to get him to be seen as a general student at our high school was just something. Uh, it was life changing. I'd say I was going to tell you this before, but I remember. So again, my brother can't walk or talk. Somehow, my stepdad fought to get him in general education classrooms, and so he was around. And when he finally graduated, we wheeled him across the stage, and it was in the Civic Center in Tallahassee. So there's probably, I don't know, 6,000 people there for it. And he got a standing ovation. And it was just awesome to see his face, but also not just his face, because it wasn't just about him, it was also his presence and how it impacted the way students thought about their lives. Does that resonate with you in the work that you do? Because it's something that I have never forgotten. And it led me so much, it impacted so much of my education career. It was that one moment.
Absolutely. So we host 8 graduations. They're coming up in 3 weeks. And as I'm listening to you say he walked across that stage, I can't tell you the feeling of watching those kids come across that stage on graduation night. So our graduations are live streamed, and I would recommend anyone watch them because we have so many kids come across that stage with physical disabilities and kids I just know from the past and know their stories. And so watch them. The ultimate goal is to get them across that stage. And it gives you chills to watch that happen.
Yeah, I'm curious, so I just shared with you one of my stories that impacted me in thinking about going into education was seeing my brother have that experience. Was there an experience or a life story that has kind of sent you down this path to have the, impact you've had, whether it's choosing the roles that you choose and all the way to today with stepping up into a brand new role that's never been created?
So I get asked that question a lot, like, how did you land there? So actually, when I went to school, I went to undergrad because I wanted to be an attorney. It was so long ago, I can't remember what part of my educational career landed me here, but landed me an experience I'm gonna share. I would go to court with juveniles to shadow the attorney that was kind of representing them. And these students, all boys, they were 13 to 16, and they were living in a group home because of drugs. All of them were there because they were addicted to drugs. And they had to go to drug court, the process of, cleaning themselves up. But in the group home, they had to be provided education because that's the law. You have to educate them. Well, the teacher who was there went on maternity leave. So they were trying to find someone to come in and teach. So I was like, oh, well, I can go in there and teach them during certain parts of the day. I could come in and do that. That's not a problem. The first thing I realized is none of the kids sitting in that room were educated. The highest reading level probably was second grade. I don't think one person in there knew their multiplication. So then I stopped, right? I stop in the moment of I'm here to teach you. And it turned into I need to know you. And learning their stories, the one consistent narrative I heard is somebody failed them academically. And if they would have had a strong foundation in school, I my heart told me I couldn't prove it. They wouldn't be in that room. But and by 13, if you can't read or you can't write, then you're in your mind, you fail. So what do I do to survive? And that's what that was. So I that's when I turned my education. I went, I'm like, nope, I'm changing my career. I'm going into education. I fought it for a long time because my grandmother was an educator. My sister was an educator. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I want to do. But that completely shifted my perspective because, yeah, I wanted to be an attorney and I wanted to be there to defend, but what if I could correct that on the front end where I never have to defend them? So, that's kinda where I started in special ed, and then I did come out of special ed for a little while. I became an elementary supervisor here in the district, and my goal was to make sure kids can read and they had foundational skills, and you can ask anybody that worked with me. I used to say all the time, "We can't keep building houses on sand. We can't keep it the foundation is key." So that's my story.
Is it is when you think about building, a strong foundation within your district or with schools within your district, is that foundation just based on reading? Or are there other parts of the foundation when you're naming, something that's built on something other than sand?
So now, 4 years ago, when I kinda took a global view of things, I'm like, we've done a really good job transforming early education here in the district where we have very good processes to make sure kids can read. We have very good processes to make sure that they have their, mathematical skills to succeed. Where I started seeing, especially after COVID, we were not creating emotionally sound kids. We were not creating kids who were we were not developing leaders in kids. So I said, this is important because that's the core of who they are. It's that hierarchy of need. If they can't express themselves or if they feel unsafe, then I don't care what we put in front of them academically, they're not going to get it. And that's where I went to my superintendent, and thank God he is as open as he is and understanding, and said, we need leader in me in this district.
That's great. So one of the things that we often talk about on this podcast, and we've spent quite a bit of time this semester, so since January, is talking about paradigm shifts, the power of paradigms. And so when you think about your role and your impact, you're getting ready to go to a cabinet meeting once we're done here, and you think about the current paradigms that folks have within the district, and that you believe, not just people in the cabinet, but also, school leaders, teachers, families, communities. What are the most key or precious paradigms that you want to see shifted in order to have a monumental impact that you're hoping to have in this role?
I want to shift from can't do's. And that is such a huge problem in education right now is we put kids in buckets. And the minute you show a side of yourself that's um you're not emotionally stable or you have a meltdown or you're not academically there, you're put into this bucket of they can't do that. Or, well, their parents were that way, so they're going to be that way. I really want to shift where every kid is looked at individually and we figure out how can we get them to do it, not they just can't do it. Because I do believe even the kids that struggle the most, when they get that one person, they're able to do it. Every kid, every human, I'm not just gonna say kid, will perform for the right person. You just have to find that one thing that gets them going. And I wish if I could shift the paradigm of teachers is not looking at kids globally as these 20 kids sitting in my room, but look at them as the person that they are. Kim may need me to pull her to the side and have a conversation with her, or Dustin may need me to crack a joke with him. But learn learn that kid, and then your whole class will come together. So that's a paradigm that I would if I could say anything, I would like to shift that paradigm. Just speaking in today, I don't think I have complete buy-in over Leader in Me yet. So if I can shift the paradigm of this works, it's not one extra thing to do, it's the thing to do. If we do this, our school performance scores will grow. If we do this, our discipline will change. So I want to the paradigm I want to shift is change is hard sometimes and it's uncomfortable, but just get through that process and it'll be okay. Don't don't let the immediate response be pushback. So I would say believing every kid has the capability, setting high expectations not only for them but for yourself. And I must say this, and I was probably gonna get like frowned upon who listen to it, but this job goes beyond 8 to 4. This job is in sometimes you got to stop and say, I chose to be an educator, and this is going to take a little bit more time than bell to bell, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. So one of my mentors, my first year of teaching high school, kind of said the same thing to me. And again, they were a union representative, and they were, very particular about the hours, but they said like so much of this is relationship building. So you've got to figure out like part of your job as you're driving home is connecting with families and finding the space in between to connect with kids. Go to the lunchroom. Just look for those opportunities because if you do those little things, it actually makes everything else much easier. But you got to invest and show up early and often. And with that, I was able to see the power. And what's funny, I just came home from a conference with my colleagues and I had just taken notes of like how each person had impacted me, some comment they made, something that made me think differently. And my son was in the car with me and he heard me call each person and just wanted to share with them like what was on my heart and how much I appreciated what they did. And he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And I didn't realize how ingrained it's been in me since teaching. And to your point, uh, I just learned through an amazing teacher, mentor of mine, that it's about not just the 8 to 4, 9 to 4, whatever it was for us, 7:30 to 2:30 or whatever. It's about the in between the seams and potentially even after, right?
Absolutely. And relationships are so important. Um, as a principal, one thing that I made sure that I did is not only call parents when something was wrong, but just call and say, "Hey, I got to tell you this great thing that happened today." Because if once I have that trust, right? That's it in itself. Once you trust me and I built that trust with you or with your child or my staff, we can go so far. You have to get past that trust factor. And that's how you get past it is building relationships and letting them know I'm gonna walk this walk with you. This is a journey we're on together. It's not me against you. This does not need to be a tug of war. But it becomes so easy once you get past that.
Well, one question as we're talking about is within paradigms. You've talked about the power of student voice before, so allowing students to like see themselves and to have their voice be heard, not just in classrooms but within schools. And you were sharing with me a unique example that I'm not going to put you on the spot for, but I am curious. How are you and how are your schools and how's your district creating space for students with exceptionalities to not only be heard, but also to lead and thrive in your schools?
So one thing that we're doing is when we rolled out the Leader in Me plan. We did not roll out this process the way it's really outlined to be rolled out. I wanted slow and steady to win this race because I know if we go slow and steady, not only do you get buy-in, you get sustainability. So when we rolled out the process, I took a year's plan and kind of rolled it out into a 3-year plan. And one of those things was creating student lighthouse teams. So we didn't just say, "Hey, you have to create a student lighthouse team." We guided them on what should that look like? Who should be the participants at the table? And the participants needed to be not your A plus students, not your athletes, not the students on student council. It needed to be the students who can influence others. So hey, that kid that had 15 write-ups, the other kids might listen to him, bring him on. Um, our sweet students, let them come and share their stories and say, this is how I feel when this happens or when I don't have access to something. So we outline that. So many of our student lighthouse teams now have students with disabilities on those teams sharing this is how we can be inclusive of all. So I'll go ahead and share the story. I don't mind. So we have to host parent family engagement nights. And one of the schools hosted a parent family engagement night. And the MC of the night that opened the night was a student that he's nonverbal. He has no verbal communication skills. And he did the whole opening through his communication device. And it was amazing. That just goes to show you that he can stand along his peers with the right support. And so they are on our students with exceptionalities are sitting at the table and they're sharing with teachers, administrators, district staff. This is what can make my school better. This is what makes me want to get up and come to school in the morning.
I love it. So they're what I'm hearing is they have positions so where they have voice in the direction of their school, and they get opportunities to lead out in significant ways that isn't just like throwing someone a bone of like, hey, here you go, you're kind of involved, just sit there. It's like, you're taking on key leadership responsibilities within our schools. That's powerful. And I also wonder, um, I've seen often, and I think you've spoken to this some too, is that there's power in students setting goals and living out these habits, right? I've heard that you are passionate about what we do. So, how are you seeing students that, especially students with exceptionalities, gain confidence through goal setting and kind of these personal leadership opportunities that you just described?
So one of the things, and it's not at all of our schools, we're actually hosting right now mini symposiums across the district. So we have 8 learning communities in St. Tammany, and our learning communities are basically our high schools. So we are taking that in the high school, the learning communities, all the schools that feed into that ultimate high school. So we're going to host these symposiums to showcase the schools that are doing Leader and Me with fidelity and effectively. So we are showing how students are sitting down and their goal setting. So one of the things that we started, and it's not across our whole district, but we started to kind of test it and it works beautifully, is students that have behavioral challenges. We have behavior intervention plans in place. That's just a state law, federal law. What we've done is we've taken the Leader and Me action planning form and we sit with them and we say, what are you going to do to make sure that you don't exhibit this behavior? What support do you need? And we create that action plan and then they track it. So at the end of the day, they're able to go and say, I didn't have any episodes today, or instead of responding in a negative way, I took a pause and I had a conversation with somebody. So we do the same thing with academics. We have a lot of sweet students that kind of just stay stagnant and we wait till the end of the year to say, "Oh my god, they didn't meet their goal." So now we're taking little bitty baby steps of saying, "Okay, at the end of the week, let's see if they're progressing toward their goal." So our sweet students are now tracking at the end of the week if they're supposed to read 10 words instead of 5 words, they can go and say, "Oh my goodness, I read 6 today." They track it. So getting that visual of I'm moving up the ladder and actually having them do it and be involved in the steps of growth, like what's your responsibility and what can I do to help you? We're seeing a lot of progress with our kids meeting their goals academically and behaviorally. Because at that point you become a um I don't want to say an owner of your own learning, but you have ownership of your learning. And it's now not somebody telling you what to do. It's I'm going to do this, but you're telling me how it can help you. And that makes a difference with a lot of kids, especially in this generation. They don't want to be told what to do. They just tell me what to do. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna wave my hand if I need some help, right? So allowing them to track their own goals and say to you, this is the support I need from you. And then just like I tell teachers, just move out the way, get out of their way, and they're gonna do this. That has helped a lot.
That's awesome. When you think about, first off, I want to commend you on the courage to go slow to go fast, right? Something that we talk about a lot, but it's hard. It's easy, I guess. From I used to be in a role similar to yours, but I had 25 turnaround schools in St. Louis Public, and in that space or in your space, we can know very comfortably that we need to go slow to go fast. However, so much of the pressure from the board to the politics around us to the newspaper, all the schools, families. It's like today we have to have urgency, and so it's a tough place to balance. And so I just commend you in that because I think if you, like you said, if you want to have progress 5 years from now and even lasting past that, you got to give people time and space to be able to get there. As you've done that, what unique pushback have you received and how have you addressed it? Because I think that's something that so many leaders in your shoes need to continue to have a community of folks who have the courage to go slow to go fast.
So some of the main pushback is I'm not gonna buy into this because it's just gonna be like another thing in education that's gonna change next year. So we have that group of people, or that was something, right? I'm not going to read the book. I'm not going to do this because it's just going to change next year anyway. That's kind of been pushback. The other pushback is the amount of money that's spent on it and you don't see an immediate impact. So I can buy curriculum and it's delivered tomorrow. I can host a PD and tomorrow you see the results of it. This is something that you have to be willing to say, I believe in the end result so much that I'm going to go ahead and invest in it now. Um, that has been extreme pushback. We're spending this money and we don't know the results yet. So having that MRA data has helped a lot to say, but again, that took a year to get, right? To have that baseline to where we are. So now it's like, well, is it working? Is it working? And hearing this isn't working within a month, that's been tough. And so I say to those that feel like it's going away, I said, I believe in it so much and it's become the foundation of what I do. It's not gonna go away as long as I'm in this seat, and I have a long way to go. Um, so that's kind of my narrative, and I've this year, I started saying, "It's okay if you don't buy into it," because when everyone around you start to do it, then you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna get on the bandwagon, because innately, educators are competitive, and they want to be the person doing the right thing. So sometimes it's okay. You can stay where you are right now until when you're ready, you're gonna be ready. And so I don't address the negative. That is something I said 2 years ago. I'm like, I'm gonna drown that noise out and I'm really gonna focus on what's working well. And when I hear what's working well, then I'm gonna duplicate that and then I'm gonna do it again. So that's helped a lot. The funding, once I kinda got over it after the first year, it was like, "Okay, this is working." And believe it or not, I saw this in a 5-year vision. It has taken off so much that I am now telling administrators and teachers, "Hold up, slow down, slow down." So, it is I would say to anyone that's looking to do this at the level we're doing it, because we are doing it at 55 schools in 3 alternative sites with over 35,000 kids. I would say the one thing that I did was I didn't force anything. I did not make it mandatory. There was an accountability system in place, but it was more of a coaching accountability, not a "I got you" accountability. And I think by saying this is every campus, it should look different. What on one campus looks different than another. Your population is different. Your culture is different. Make this your own. So I often use the analogy, it's like a chop kitchen. I say it in every meeting. I'm going to give you the ingredients, and whatever meal you produce is your meal. But I shouldn't walk on 55 different campuses and see the same thing. So I'm gonna give you every ingredient you need, and you can choose to leave it in a refrigerator or do something with it. And by being that supportive, but that hands off, I truly believe in my heart is what has led us to get to where we are. And out of all of our schools, I would say 100% of our schools are doing something. About 60% are knocking it out the ballpark.
That's awesome. I think again, it takes courage, but I say this often, and this probably I don't know how this will be received. I won't make any assumptions, but if we were so great as an organization, we'd get the same results everywhere, but we don't, right? And so it is you are and your principals and your teachers and your students and your families are the hero of the story, right? Like you said, we offer these ingredients for you all to make it whatever it is. And for me, the educators that I respect the most are ones who often fight top-down implementations just because they want voice and they wanna have individuality, and so they don't wanna be just like every other school, and the beautiful thing of this is that we often call it a process, not a program, because we wanted to add value to the things you're already doing great in your schools, right? And the culture that you already have created and the systems you already have. we want to add value to that, not take away or dismantle those things, right?
I completely agree with that. And we have said since starting this, one thing I would say to anyone that's a leader is I've worked in many different situations in many different environments, and you have to know your audience. And just like I say with students now, they don't want to be told what to do, right? They want to be coached, they want to be helped, but they don't want to be told. And I will say from where I sit, I often try to work really hard not to have top-down initiatives where I'm forcing you to do something. Unless it's a mandate or a law, then I wanna hear, like, how will this impact you? How can we make this work for your school? How can I make this work in your class? Because you're already doing great things. We just can make it better. And that's where you get buy-in when teachers so when I'm sitting in meetings, I'm listening to the teacher Lighthouse team. I'm not saying, "Oh, this is how we want it done." No. What is it that I just did it last week? Tell me what y'all are struggling to get this going, but let's stop and tell me everything y'all did this month. And then all I did is I just tagged everything they did to a habit or a leader in me. And I'm like, don't reinvent the wheel. Just use the language and share your story in a leader in me fashion. So I think my personality, I don't always like to be told what to do. I like to have a voice and um, and because I want that, then I think it's important to give it to everybody.
Yeah, another thing that as you were talking about implementation rollout, another wise piece of information a friend and mentor gave me a long time ago was when you think about implementing, you've got speedboats, tugboats, and rowboats, right? So my wife, I've always said this on these meetings, like my wife is the speedboat. Like her principal, she's a chief of staff of a school district now, but her principal, when she was a reading teacher, could come to her on a Friday, Sunday after church, we'd be in her classroom redoing everything so that Monday's a go, right? I was always like a tugboat. I'm all in, but I've got a few questions. I got some skepticism I need to process. Once I get there, we're going steady and I'll take everybody with me, but we're going. And then the rowboats are folks who just kind of, and just assume the best, right? So like they've seen everything come and go. And so they're like, why am I going to put all this energy and effort to something that's going to disappear? Right. And so when we think about implementation, it's like, all right, speedboats, you guys can handle all of this and go. Tugboats, do a little bit more that you feel comfortable with. But like there should be like two or three elements that rowboats, tugboats, and speedboats can all do and then allow people to catch up at their pace, right? To earn trust and to earn their own voice at the table so that they can make it their own versus, Kimberly or Dustin coming down on top of folks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I use the rowboat analogy a lot as a principal. I'll say,
Yeah.
this is the direction we're rowing in. And if you're not rowing with us, this might be a boat you need to get off.
Yeah.
You know,
I
but
can't take people off your boats. That's gonna have to be you, but I definitely, echo that.
yeah, but it's funny listening to the speedboat, rowboat, and tugboat because I can think of different analogies where I'm a speedboat through and through. Like
Yes.
my mind is always like going, going, going with all these things I could implement. And my two directors that work under me, Christy and Carrie, that we are all so unique in our own way that so asking those questions, that's Christy, right? Like she's like gonna ask me so many questions. And then she's like, okay, let's go. But we balance each other and it works well. And even, with my superintendent, he's the same way. He'll ask questions, or sometimes he's like, I trust you enough that you're gonna get this right. So I think it's important to have that dynamic of all those boats sitting on a team because that's how
Yes.
we get to where we have to go.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, and that's okay, right? Like, it's okay to have different paces because that helps everybody get better, right?
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. So I have 2 questions. I'm gonna ask 1. I'm gonna give you a chance to offer anything else that you want, and then I'll close out, before we get to our rapid fire. But I'm curious, again, given your diverse background and your focus and a brand new role that was created that I think is having a dynamic impact on every one of your 55 or 58 plus sites, what are some of the hopes you have for the future of education, particularly and especially when it comes to students with exceptionalities? And, basically another way to ask that is like, what kind of change would you like to see either at your district, state, or even the national, federal level when it comes to students with exceptionalities?
So I'm gonna say this too, so because it's going to end up, I'm over students with exceptionalities, federal programs, and early childhood.
That's it.
So, um, so I have to say this to say one hope that I think I would love to see at the federal level and the state level, because we do it well here in St. Tammany, is to invest in early childhood enough that we don't see the impact it has with students with exceptionalities. There is a huge percentage of students in early childhood that if we had the capability and the financial means to intervene at an early age, because early intervention is by far one of the greatest things you can do with a student that you know has a suspected disability or an identified disability. If we can catch them from birth to 5, it would significantly impact their public school education from pre-K to 12. So my hope, if I can say something to change, is at the state level and the federal level, invest in what will make a huge impact. So I think I always say it's like a domino effect. If I can do this, a byproduct of that is this. If we had the money in early childhood to invest, that's one. That's how I can impact our sweet population. Um, when it comes to students with exceptionalities in general, I would love Louisiana is getting it right. They are pushed out something called a special education playbook. I encourage anybody to read this, but it is really pushing how to educate students with disabilities in any educational setting based on their deficit, not based on a label. So if you have a deficit in reading fluency, I should not pull you out of class all day and put you in a special ed class. I should pull you out for 30 minutes and intervene with just reading fluency. So what I would love to see is a deep dive into what is the child's need and how do we customize education for students with exceptionalities where they get to participate as much as they can in a school experience with non-disabled peers, from clubs to academics to functions to sitting on panels. So I would, from the state level and the federal level, educate LEAs enough to be able to say, how do I do that? The I in IEP is individual, but we don't individualize everything, right? We just group all these kids together. Um, so I would ask that we start to look at it through the lens of the needs of the child and not the label of the child. That's what I would say. And I think if we educate people in that way, then ultimately it won't become that's your student and this is my student. Because the special ed teacher, that's their students, and the regular ed teacher, that's their kids. And I think that we'll move away from that. So this is our kids. This is our community. These are the kids that's gonna be our neighbors, our kids' friends.
Have you ever seen like the Obama or Brian Cranston gif, the mic drop, where they just drop the mic to folks? That was kind of your moment there, because I was like, yeah, I have 2 more questions. I don't have any more questions, only because the way you brought that home led to my next one. And so I think what I'm most impressed by is your clarity of purpose, right? It doesn't feel like you're doing a job. It feels like you're on a mission. And I feel like that palpability is something that probably serves you well as you're, navigating rough waters, right? And rough waters doesn't mean like there are like dysfunctional challenges that you have in your, as you walk to the cabinet meeting. It just means that like life and education, particularly a district your size, there's just a new fight, new challenge every day. And so would you agree with that? It's like first and foremost, it's having a clear vision, mission, and purpose before it's anything else.
Before anything else. And it's funny you say that. I have a saying here, and if he listens to this, he's gonna know I'm talking about him, but he makes the ongoing joke about, and we'll do something and he'll say, oh, wait, make sure y'all don't take them off of their path of purpose so Miss Gardner doesn't get upset.
Yes.
But I truly believe I'm on my path of purpose. And my saying is, when we take people off their path of purpose, it's like being in a safari in a Jeep where I'm I'm ice skating on an ice rink right now. So I am so meticulous about when I'm interviewing for jobs or I'm listening to people. I want to hear your purpose. What do you think your purpose is? So I can put you on that path of purpose. Because if you're not there, you're not going to wake up wanting to come do this every day. This is a tough job. And I am excited to come to work and do the work that I'm doing. And it's because I truly believe that somebody believed in me enough. Um, Thank you to my superintendent, Mr. Jabby. He believed in me enough to say, I'm gonna put her on her path of purpose. And it's a very rewarding job. It's tough, but it's rewarding.
I am stealing that. We are kindred spirits, but I have not had that kind of. I feel like since I was 21 years old, I've had a clear mission in life, a mission statement that's guided every decision I made up until this point. And so, like, but when I'm in interviews, so part of my job, podcasting is a very small part of my role as managing director within Franklin Covey that I am really focused on. So I'm in a lot of hiring conversations, and just like you said, I think so often I'm thinking like, I'm just going to assume the best. By the time you've gotten to where I'm at, I, people like you. So my question is always like, why do you want to be here? How does this fit with your life's purpose? Because like you said, regardless, like there's a lot of folks who get excited about the idea of working, as a teacher or principal or, a working idea of working at Franklin Covey. And it's like, that's great. But like, it's like every other job, you're going to have days where it's hard to wake up. And the only thing that's going to be able to wake you up is your purpose. And so I'm going to steal that path to purpose and use that as a transition to our rapid fire questions. And I will allow you to revisit path to purpose with my last question if you want. But as we jump into it, I'm very, very curious by you and inspired by you. So, with that, what's a habit or a discipline? Doesn't have to be the 7 habits, but it can be, I don't care. What's a habit or discipline you utilize in your life on a daily basis that helps you show up as the best version of yourself?
So I've thought about that. And so I am going to use a habit because I think that this is important. So I think as a leader and my personality itself, I strive to seek first to understand because there are so many people that I impact in my position that I want to understand before I respond because we all have biases. We all have preconceived thoughts that we want to answer a certain way, or you hear the first sentence and you're already formulating your response. So I have worked really hard to stop and seek first to understand, even to the point where I'll say, let me say this in my words to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So that's something that I think is so important as a leader is to understand where people are coming from before you respond or before you make a decision.
I love it. A good friend of mine and I, who works with me, we were flying back just a week ago on the same flight, same row, and a woman heard us talking. She's like, "What do you guys do?" And so we started talking about 7 habits, and she asked us what our favorite habit was, and both of us would say it was definitely habit 5. We would also say it's something that we constantly have to work on and never fully master, particularly with my wife or my kids or people that are closer to you. It feels harder sometimes because you jump to conclusions because you have so much more evidence, right? All right, next question. I always ruin the rapid fire portion of this, just so we're clear. It's starting to become a joke, rapid fire of like 10 minutes.
I love it.
What is a book that you've either read recently or throughout your career that you think other educators, it's shaped your vision, right, or shaped your path that other educators need to check out?
So that was a hard I was think that was hard. Now, and I feel like this is a question you get asked a lot. And I can go on this literally 15-minute conversation of telling you all these different books that I think people should read. Like The Power of Now is good. But I really reflected and I'm thinking, what is something a book I recommend? So probably for 7 years, every year I read this book called I'm Rich Beyond My Wildest Dreams. And it's by the Pauleys. They're married. And the reason I kept going back to it is because I truly believe when you have a mission or a vision, you can manifest anything that you stop, list it out, write it out, and you're very clear. The universe gonna work with you, right? This is it's going to come to fruition. And this book I lived in Hawaii for years, and that's the first time I ever read it. And then I just started reading it over and over. Whenever I had this vision of I want to do something, I'm like, let me go back to that book because it tells you how to make something come to fruition. And out of all the books, that we've read, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The Power of Now, it's so many things that I read, and I just go back to that's it. It's so simple. Even like one word, that's a good book to read. It's so simple. But this book, it really helps you think, I can make this happen. I don't have to wait on anybody else. I can make this happen. So
I love it. All right. Next question. Again, where I grew up in Florida, we didn't think about walk-up songs very often. I grew up in North Florida, so it was all about football over anything else. We did play baseball, but we didn't think about walk-up songs. My sons are obsessed with walk-up songs. So if you had a walk-up song to set you in the right mood to go into a big meeting, whatever it is in your life, what would your walk-up song be?
so it depends on my mood. I'm from New Orleans, so sometimes I'm just rolling to work listening to loud bounce music. But my walk-up song that just gives me, you know, like, I got this, I would say is, Estelle Conqueror's one, and I Was Here by Beyonce. Like, those are my jams. Like, that gives me that motivation I need to keep going.
All right.
So
I know one of them. I'll have to check out the other one. I feel like when I hear Estelle, this may age me, but I think American Boy was the first one that I got. That's the same one that I got introduced to way back when. That's where my head goes as I hear that term. So I'm gonna have to check it out.
and I Was Here by Beyonce, you have to hear the United Nation version because everybody starts cheering at the end, and it just
Yeah.
makes you like, yeah, yeah.
All right. I'm in. All right. Last question. What is either, I assume you're around a lot of inspirational people, whether it's via social media or whether it's, just in your own personal life. What's a quote or a lesson that has either been on your heart lately or one that, like the path to purpose that has been constantly on your heart for a long time that you would love for other educators to receive and start activating in their own lives?
So this was years ago, and I really can't remember it. I should remember who told me this, but it stuck with me forever, especially when I hit roadblocks. And I just hear this, you're the author of your own story. So, when you hear no, and you can write the next chapter. So that's something I would say. Like I tell my kids that all the time. You are the author of your own story. And I think in many ways that's applicable to many things. When you hear teachers say, my classroom's not going the right way, rewrite the story. You can do this. You can come to work tomorrow and start all over. You can start from the beginning. So no one else has that control but you. So I often say that to myself a lot. I'm the author of my own story. And what's the story I want to be told when I'm not sitting in this seat?
I love that. Well, Miss Gardner, it is clear you are on your path to purpose, and it is clear that I will be stealing that terminology. I will attribute it to you in every meeting, even when people wonder who the heck Miss Gardner is. I will then tell the story of St. Tammany and what you guys are doing. And I mean that, like, I mean, Caitlin, our producer, is listening, and she knows me well enough to know that what I am saying is actually true. And I will make it awkward. And people are like, okay, so where's St. Tammany? Like, I don't know, I haven't been, but you got to go because people are on purpose down there. I just thank you for your courage to lead with purpose. I know some days it's not easy. I know you're showing up very positive and passionate here. Again, when you go to cabinet, who knows what you guys are tackling? And I know that could be good days and bad days and whatever that is. But I hope you feel and know your purpose is shining through in this conversation. And it's something that I think people around you can receive. And so I just want to encourage you to continue to stay on that path. Whatever it is for you, just stay on it and don't let people move you off it. And I'm sure that happens sometimes, but don't let circumstances or people move you off it because it's very inspiring to me. And I've interviewed a lot of folks the last 5 years, but I've not walked away thinking, oh, I got to take this to my next meeting. I have an interview in an hour with someone trying to join here, and I am stealing it very quickly in there. So I just appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I cannot go without saying this takes a team. And I could not have asked for a better team to work with me. Our administrators, our teachers, they are we have the best here, and it's amazing to work in this district, and I could not do this without them. So a lot of my accolades I have to attribute to this, the support that I've had from them and the work that they do too.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to put this on the podcast to see if I can put some pressure on Caitlin and my team. But I want to come down there and see what you guys are doing. I've heard about St. Tammany for quite a while, and I think I've met a few of your educators before. Sometimes I MC certain symposiums, so I think I've met some of your educators at different places, but have not heard the story and have certainly not seen it. So I think I need to make it a priority as well for the podcast to come down and visit.
Yes, and I can share the dates with you. We have 8 of them we have 7 in May. So I can't wait. So anytime, you just let me know.
All right. Well, Kimberly, this is awesome. Thank you for making time for us. And I think we will get you into your meeting just in time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.